in a low-income school, and I'm doing this presentation to fulfill the requirements of Education 699 at Morningside College for my Master's of Arts in Teaching. So a little introduction about myself. I have a Bachelor's of Arts in Movement and Exercise Science. I have a Bachelor's of Arts in PE Teaching. I have a Master's in Kinesiology. And after all that, I went on to be a special education teacher at Waterloo East High School in Waterloo, Iowa. So before I move on to the problem statement, to review the name of my study, it's the effect of sports participation on academic achievement in a low-income school. So you would think with sports participation and academic achievement that everything would have been researched previously, but when I was doing all my research, I found a lot of gaps. So as you can imagine, extracurricular activities lead to positive academic outcomes. That's been researched time and time again. Okay, when we go along, I'll tell you more about the benefits. However, the problems come along when there's few studies that focus solely on extracurricular athletics. So most of these studies actually combine sports, drama, band, all into one group. So you couldn't differentiate between which ones were having different outcomes. Another major problem was, to my knowledge, no studies focused solely on low-income schools. A lot of studies were actually middle and upper-class populations. So why me? So at my school, I'm the strength and conditioning coach. So what that means is I have a large amount of time invested into the school in athletics. And I'm not just, as the strength coach, I'm not just invested into one team. I have an investment into every single athlete there. So I want to pick something that's not only interesting to me, but something I can apply right away to my school and current situation. So when reviewing the literature, I designed it to address any research covering extracurricular athletics and social and economic status. My focus areas were extracurricular activities, organized sports, and then SES. So with extracurricular activities, as I previously discussed, there's a large list of benefits. Social and physical and cognitive skills, improvement in those skills, increased developed sense of self. You get to contribute to a team in school. You get social recognition. You increase your problem solving skills, and you actually have a lower dropout rate. The problem with all our previous research in these studies is, like I talked about earlier, is they focus mostly on the middle to upper class students. And then they also group extracurricular activities to a whole, so they don't differentiate between sports or band or clubs. So with organized sports, the main thing about organized sports that I wanted to look up is that the physical activity. So we know sports give physical activity, and time again, physical activity has been researched and shows positive effects on student academic achievement and cognitive outcomes. So one of the things I wanted to find out was kind of if sports have the same benefits as physical activity. I actually came across a bunch of conflicting results. So Fox and colleagues found that higher GPA for boys who participate in sports, but actually lower for girls who participated. Posner and Vandal found out in 1999 that 3rd to 5th grade students in sports receive lower academic grades compared to peers. And then more studies found that organized sports actually had negative or association with negative outcomes, such as alcohol and tobacco use. And these are just a few examples of many of the conflicting results. So regardless of literature review, the big problem was that there was no studies that focused on just a low-income school. So social economic status, we all know that provides tons of barriers for students. However, granted the study was done in 1982, White did a meta-analysis of like 250 studies and found out that social economic status only accounts for 5% variance in academic achievement in students. Now, to keep my study kind of simple, I only researched the effects of social economic status on sports and activities. So as you can imagine, the low social economic status provides barriers for students. These barriers are fewer resources in their towns or their neighborhoods. There's lower availability to youth activities, and then there's a large amount of transportation restraints. Anyone that works in a low-income school, you know these issues are real, and then it's a constant battle to work with your kids. And then obviously this all led into the main problem, which no studies tested the effects of athletic participation on academic achievement in a low-income school or low SES school. So the purpose of this study was to determine the effect of school organized sport participation on academic achievement for students in a Title I school. So simply what a Title I school is, it means 40% of the students qualify for free or reduced lunch. And as previously discussed, this will be the first study that focused solely on sports and in a low-income school. So this was a quasi-experimental design, meaning that the students weren't randomly selected to groups. the students were pre-selected based on if they were in sports or not. My hypothesis was that students who participate in extracurricular sports will attain higher GPAs compared to their peers. My independent variable was participation in extracurricular activities, and then my dependent was academic achievement, and in this case, GPA. So I selected 120 9th through 12th grade students in the target school. The target school has a total of 952 students. The demographics are 49% Caucasian, 33% African American, 11% Hispanic or Latino, and 7% other races. The reason I selected my school is because it's a Title I school. So as I just said, a Title I school means that 40% of the students qualify for free or reduced lunch. And in this school specifically, 61.59% of the students qualify. So for athletic participation, the school actually helped me with this. They were able to create a filter through their Infinite Campus program. What the Infinite Campus program is, it's a software used nationwide by many schools. It pretty much is a tool for everything. You enter attendance, you enter grades, you can look up referrals, anything, all the students' information. And so what the school was able to do is they were able to create filters that would sort students out by sports and by which sport they're in. So then the school created their filters, and that allowed me to export all the students in athletics into a CSV file, which then I opened with Microsoft Excel. So when I had this Microsoft Excel file, what I did is I deleted all the students' information except for student ID. So I deleted the students' names, their birthdays, and then there was sports information, like if they had their physicals in or not. So then after I got by just students' IDs, I put it in chronological order and then used systematic sampling. So the form of systematic sampling I used was I picked 1 in every 4 students until 60 were chosen. I ended up with my athletic participation group, 21 females and 39 males. In order to keep confidentiality, ethnicity, grade level, GPA, and special education status were recorded following the study. So all I had for my participants was their student ID. For my non-athletic participation group, the school provided the researcher with myself with a list of students organized by student ID. So this was a list of every student in the school by student ID. So I used the same form of systematic sampling. I picked 1 in every 4 students until 60 were picked. Now, because the school gave me a list of every student, I had to take all 60 I chosen and then cross-reference it with my athletic list. And any students that were on both lists, I took off the non-athletic participation list, and then I continued to use systematic sampling until I had 60 independent students. So this was the case for 6 students on the list. And then this worked out perfectly. I actually ended up with 30 females and 30 males on my non-athletic list. Then again, in order to keep confidentiality, I only kept student ID. So ethnicity, grade level, GPA, and special education status were all recorded at the end of the study. So following the completion of the study, actually 29 students were dropped, which gave me a total of 91. So the reason students were dropped was if they're enrolled in honors courses. So our honors courses, or the school's honors courses, have a 5.0 scale for GPA. So they were dropped because that would lower the reliability and validity of the measure. If students dropped out, if they quit their sports, if they transferred from the school, or if they enrolled in sports past the beginning of the study date, then they were removed from the study. So I ended up with my athletic participation with 41 students, 27 males and 14 females. The demographics with that group were 14 African Americans, 22 Caucasians, 5 Hispanic Latinos, 1 or 2 or more races, and 8 students with IEPs. In my non-athletic participation group, I ended up with 50 students, 26 males and 24 females, and their demographics were 16 African Americans, 24 Caucasians, 6 Hispanic Latinos, 2 or more races, 2 or more races, 2 other races, and 5 students with IEPs. So if you look at those demographics, they're actually extremely similar between groups. So this research study took place during the fall of the 2017-2018 school year and was conducted over a 20-week period. All descriptive statistics and GPAs, like I talked about, were recorded for each student at the end of the study, and that was strictly to maintain confidentiality. Data was then analyzed following the end of the 20-week period. So there was no significant differences between group characteristics. I ran an independent t-test, and that showed no difference between the group's ethnicity, with P being greater than 0.05. I also ran another independent t-test, which showed no significant difference between the group special education status. So that was with students with IEPs, as P was greater than 0.05. So the big one we tested for was the grade point average, or academic achievement. So the results of the independent t-test showed a significant difference between groups, and P was less than 0.001. So at the end of the 20-week study, the participants who participated in athletics achieved a mean GPA of 2.92, and the participants who did not participate in athletics achieved a mean GPA of 2.167. So this was really surprising. I didn't know it was going to be that strong of a difference, but yeah, there's a huge difference between groups. So this confirmed my hypothesis that the students in low-income school who participate in extracurricular athletics will achieve higher GPAs than their peers. And you can see by the graph. So implications. So this research study supported the findings of similar studies in which students who participate in extracurricular activities achieved higher GPAs than their peers. Right? So same as all the ones that were regarding activities. Now, as I talked about many times, this is the first one to focus solely on extracurricular sports participation and also just in a low-income school. So I was able to bridge two gaps of research into one study. Now, the main implications for teachers, parents, and administrators is that this just provides more evidence on the importance of organized sports. So in a way that we can use these findings to encourage involvement, get kids involved, talk about the benefits of not only being with their friends and everything, but also get higher grades. So there were a few limitations. One of the main ones was sample size. So I only ended up with 91 participants, which only represents 10% of the school's population. So obviously using a bigger sample size could yield different results. A huge limitation I had was that I did not test individual social and economic status for each participant. So it is possible that the individual selected for the study did not represent the 61.59% of the students that qualify for free or reduced lunch. Now, because of this, that means that we cannot apply the results to low-income students. We can only generalize the results for low-income schools, meaning I can't say low-income students will achieve higher GPAs than their peers. I can only say students in a low-income school achieved higher GPAs than their peers. Another limitation was the length of the study. So this was done only over the fall semester, which was a 20-week period. So obviously, if a study was done over a whole school year, it could yield different results. Future research. One thing future research could do is test for specific demographics. So I tested for differences between groups, but research could test specific, like the differences. So they could focus on ethnicity, special education status, or socioeconomic status. For example, they could test just students with social economics or with low social economic status, or they could test just certain races or ethnicities, or just test for students with IEPs and see if there's a difference between sports participation and non-participation. Another thing for future research is that they could test specific athletics. So this study group football, volleyball, football cheerleading, girls swimming, boys and girls cross country, and men's golf all into one group. So it's very possible that each sport has different benefits. For example, that was just a generalization. I don't know if it is by any means at all. But people in football could have lower GPAs compared to men's golf. Then also future research, like talk about the limitation, is that it could test for year-round sport participation on GPA. So these are all my references that were used just for the presentation. I am looking forward to reading the comments and answering any questions. Thank you.